It's always a good day when Dino Alberto is here, award-winning local motorsport journalist and BFFs with Martin Truex Jr. And well, you know him, which is nice. I mean, you work so much at the Pocono Raceway, you do get to know some of these guys. But you just so happened to give an award to him earlier this year. He goes on to win the Monster Energy Cup Championship this season, and you even picked him. We're going to go back and check the tape, but you had a good feeling about him this season. Dino, let's talk about him as a driver. What led him to this championship?
Well, first of all, that must have been some good mojo going on back at Pocono then. But listen, this guy is the complete package, in my opinion, as a driver. He hit on all cylinders this year. These guys came to the racetrack and they just had everything going their way. It was that kind of a year. And it would almost been to the point where, had he not won the championship, I think it would have been lackluster. Not to take anything away from Kyle Busch or Keselowski or any of the other guys that were in there battling with him, but the way the season went for them, to not see them capture it the way they did at the very end there, I think it just would have not been so dramatic as another driver taking it. So he just did everything so well this year. Everything just went perfectly. Even the bad times, they were able to turn those around and make good finishes out of it, and that's what's really important. Kenny, if you remember, we talked about the stage racing and how these guys worked it this year, and you know it was the first year for that. Martin Truex, I think he took that and he really ran with it, because a lot of his points came through stage racing this year, and that really was substantial in getting him into the championship four.
And you know, you were just at his home track recently, so you were kind of in his footsteps where he started out, I believe, and you said it was in New Jersey.
Yeah, it was at Wall Stadium for the annual Turkey Derby, and it's an amazing three-day weekend show. I only got down there for one, for the Saturday when they ran the modifieds and several other divisions, but Martin Truex and his family, his father, his younger brother, and basically all of his cousins and that, have all come through the ranks there at Wall Stadium. It's a third-mile, high-banked asphalt track. It's very similar to what Evergreen looks like, and the same kind of cars that run there, but that's where he cut his teeth in racing, and it was so cool to see that somebody somewhat local, who was raced up in this region before, was able to make it into the big leagues. As a matter of fact, on the stage at Miami, when he won the championship, he made it a point to throw a shout out to all the folks back home at Wall Stadium, where it all started for him, and that all of us heard that, and we were all pretty touched by it.
And one of the other things, so Dale Earnhardt Jr., so retiring from full-time racing, and you know he's a fan favorite. So what's going on there?
Funny thing about drivers, you never say never when it comes to retirement. This is a bug that you just don't seem to get out of your system. Dale's going to be in the booth, as you well know. He's leaving the cockpit, going into the announcer's booth to be working with television. He's going to be a great addition to that. He won, I think, the most popular driver contest for like somewhere like the 14th or 15th.
15, because I looked that up and couldn't believe that. Yeah.
And so, like, NASCAR depends on somebody like a Dale Earnhardt Jr. And oddly enough, here's a guy that won nowhere near what his father won, or some of these other drivers who are out there right now, but his popularity just soared because of the kind of person that he is, and just his outgoingness to go with the fans and what he does.
And you know, as a junior myself, my father passed away when I was younger. It's hard, I don't want to say living in someone's shadow sometimes, but a lot of people liked my father and that. But when you look at Dale too, kind of the same thing. How did he distinguish himself, both like on the track and kind of as a person, as a driver?
Well, first of all, your father was a cool guy. I remember him well. And for Dale himself, you have to realize something. He had to follow in the footsteps of probably the single most famous race car driver to come down the pike in a long, long time. So he had that pressure on him all the time. And then to live through what his father, how he passed away through the terrible accident back in 1991, I guess it was, at Daytona, or excuse me, 2001, and then to come back later that year, win at the very same track, and try to do the same type of things that he did. I think he always had that thing in the back of his mind, I got to win that championship, and that pressure was always there. And then unfortunately, later on in his career, which led him to this retirement, was the concussion. And it's not just him that had to suffer through that. There's quite a few drivers that have gone through that, and we just don't realize it.
Nationally, what else do you look back on this year when we're not looking at NASCAR, maybe?
First of all, IndyCar at Pocono this year was probably the single best big car race that I've seen all year. And I'm not saying that for the fact that I work there and I get to be there on a regular basis, but there was somewhere in the neighborhood of close to 50 lead changes and quite constantly, lap after lap, at one portion of that race. The ABC Supply 500, I think, stands as one of the best races throughout the season, bar none on that deal. And thankfully, they are coming back for 2018.
Racing season's never over, and we'll have Dino Alberto back here in the studio to talk about some local racing very soon here on SSPTV News.